hear me perfectly? I probably don't need it. Right. Okay. We've got a horde of stories today. Our viewers, readers, and listeners, Nelson Chamisa reveals for the first time, it seems, the exiting CCC and following a path that I think, Wilbert, you remember, you used to talk about this. Stop getting into these elections without reforms, remember? Right.
And myself a number of enemies.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it'll be great to talk about that, Wilbert. And you just within that context. And Wilbert, Chamisa has made this public for the first time. I guess maybe, he has still talked about it, but I think today he was a little bit extra revealing, let me say. And Wilbert, he announced in a very short tweet that exiting CCC was the best decision. And he says, look, this he did to punish Mnangagwa. Okay, so I think we're going to talk about that today. But we're also going to talk about the war veterans. They have had victory against a war veteran group, have had victory against Billy Rautenbach, the businessman of the fake ethanol electricity. By the way, another scam, it seems. Another alleged scam that he once made. But this is a man who had taken over a property. But we're going to be hearing a little bit about that. And then we also have a third story that relates to the Hopewell wealth claim being changed. So quickly, let's just shift here to the war veterans.
Okay, we were in court. We had our clients were farm owners in Koromonsi Springs Farm. They had their offer letters withdrawn by the Minister of Lands, that's Minister Masuk. And I think they withdrew the offer letters. Then we took the minister to the High Court, challenging his exercise of power. Then unfortunately the minister decided to delegate the power of answering these papers to the permanent secretary. And at the hearing of the matter, that point was taken up, that there had been no opposition because the minister himself had not deposed an affidavit and also had not answered. The court accepted that point. But not only did it accept that point that the minister was not before it, the court also went into details to look at the withdrawal of the offer letters. And on the merits, the court was satisfied that the minister had not applied his mind to the withdrawals. These farmers had actually raised a number of concerns, but the minister was giving them the same answer. He didn't take into account the peculiar situations of each of those. But what is also important is that the court stressed that land is an important resource. The grant or withdrawal of offer letters must not be a walk in the park. Once a person has access to land through an offer letter, that offer letter must not just be withdrawn willy-nilly in the manner that the minister in this case did. So at the end of the day, the court then set aside.
Right, so that is the court victory by the war veterans at the High Court of yours, because the story is on Zimai. And Wilbert, how do you see this? Billy Rautenbach has lost another case. He's someone who is another, I don't know if I could call him another Wicknell, but he's definitely another energy claim, another electricity claimant, correct? Or business innovator. 15 years ago, he promised to electrify the whole country, and that is with using ethanol. Do you remember that?
Well, I mean, in this particular case, really, if you focus on the issue of the land, the case that we're talking about here,
yes,
I think one of the things that must be said, and myself and a few others have said it repeatedly in the past, ZANU-PF's handling of the land issue was political. This issue of giving people offer letters, which are then withdrawn willy-nilly, and I think in many of the cases, the individuals have not had the confidence to challenge those withdrawal, those offer letters. So they would have lost that land. But this has happened before. This has been politically motivated. But the other important issue that must be emphasized here is that most of these offer letters have gone to the ruling elite, including war veterans. Are we saying here that the ruling elite and the war veterans are the only Zimbabweans who needed land? That is another issue that most people have ignored, Zimbabwe. And it really is a burning issue, particularly when you look at the rural areas. Some of us, we grew up in the rural areas. We know how poor the soil in the rural area has become. But even then, I think you'll find with some people would do a lot better if they were to get even a few acres of land, title deeds to that land. They will build a better house than homestead. They will be able to grow fruit trees, dig wells, improve that 2 acres, knowing fully well that if I should decide, okay, I want to move somewhere else, I can sell it to Simbachkanza or somebody else and recover some of my expenses. But they cannot do that because at the present moment, none of the blacks in the rural area, and that's 60 to 70% of the population, own even title deeds to even 10 square meters of land. Why? It's political. I think this is an issue that really has not been addressed. When they originally started this land redistribution issue, ZANU-PF itself said it was to give land to the peasants in the rural areas. In reality, a few rural peasants have been resettled in some of these farms, but the overwhelming majority in the rural areas have not been resettled. And they are eking a living out of land which no one can really have any confidence to look after and to develop, because they can easily be moved. I think this is a sorry story. I'm glad the war veterans won their case, but I'm disappointed that the war veterans seem to have joined this ZANU-PF ruling elite, because now they seem to think that they are entitled to own the land. And yet they've forgotten that there are millions of people in the rural area who own nothing. And they've never said anything about it. To me, it's a letdown. It's really a tragic.
Right. Wilbert, quickly, let's just go straight into another story here. We have Nelson Chamisa. I'm just going to try and put up the tweet so that we get it into, we actually talk about it while we're seeing it on the screen.
Yeah.
Today he has announced that this was his best decision, exiting CCC. Let me just get it once again. So this is what he said. I think we should have it shortly on the screen. The best decision I ever made in my leadership journey was to walk away from the CCC and MDC. Sorry, started with MDC and then CCC. You will thank me later. Let me try and put it up on the screen a little bit. I know you're someone who used to advise Chamisa. A lot of people found you to be, they were not happy with some of your opinions over quitting. I think, maybe take us through that journey. What is it that you take from Chamisa's statement today?
Well, to be quite honest, if he's talking about quitting CCC after the 2023 elections, I think, for the record, I was one of those people who said that he should have never participated in those flawed elections.
Mm-hmm.
And having participated in those flawed elections, knowing fully well that the process is flawed, knowing fully well that by participating, yes, he's giving ZANU-PF legitimacy, and he participated and gave ZANU-PF legitimacy. To be quite honest, what he did after that is irrelevant. The damage has already been done. Walking away from CCC at that point when Tsavango stepped in to seize the party, what difference did it make? None. The important thing is ZANU-PF had got its legitimacy. I think you'll have to ask him to explain how did that help the country in any way. The damage has already been done. You participated knowing fully well that the process is flawed. You were warned that if you participate, you give ZANU-PF legitimacy, and you still went ahead and participated. And by the way, after the elections, after SADC and the AU election observers had condemned the process as flawed, Chamisa himself advised some of his colleagues before Tsavango had moved in that they should not take up their gravy train seats. They defied him and they took up those seats. Exactly. So at that point, you have already given ZANU-PF legitimacy. Whether Tsavango came in a day after or a week after or 6 months later, it's irrelevant. The damage has been done. And he's resigning from the party. To be quite honest, it's academic. What difference did it make? None.
You think there's nothing apana zachinja? Could I give my input?
Yeah.
Sorry?
You go ahead.
Yeah. So if I could give my own input, and if I was to use my own story a little bit, I am persuaded that what Chamisa has done is in fact very, very strategic. And he could have possibly done it late, as you say. But what Chamisa has done is in fact climbing to the top of the mountain, or climbing away from Mnangagwa. He has climbed higher. And Wilbert, this is strategic climbing. It might not be funfair, but it is strategic in that, Wilbert, leadership is not in politics. Leadership is something else. You can be in politics, but you're not a leader. You're not leading, correct? And leadership is not an army. Leadership is not. And so the timing, yes, I hear you. But Wilbert, when else? There's never been multi-party democracy in Zimbabwe at any time. Never. Zimbabwe has always been a single-party country. Do you disagree? And so, since 1896, if you're going to look for a timing, when do you withdraw? When do you move in? When do you move out? Because It is an order that is set never to allow multi-party democracy. So you can walk out anytime and you will still have done something. It could be a different timing that other people will find inappropriate, but still, it is a walking away. It is a walking off. And right now, he is there. Over the last 7 years, Mnangagwa has struggled to lift the economy. He can't. He can't operate without Chamisa. He can't. And that's why he's ended up deploying the army in 2018 to shoot people and intimidate people, right? And then change election results. And then later on, deprive Chamisa of the party. The same strategy that Mnangagwa used in 1983 to deprive Joshua Nkomo, the first opposition party, of its assets, and the very party that it had. Same strategy. It's being done again in 2023, after the 2023 elections. If Chamisa didn't win those elections, why is Mnangagwa taking away even the party itself? Why are Mnangagwa surrogates like Chabangu doing it? So my point that I'm trying to get at, Wilbert, is this, that at any time, this can be done, don't you think? And Wilbert, I think there's a comment there, we'll read it shortly. Yeah. So the movement moving out of a party, moving away from politics, as it were, it is still strategic, Wilbert, because it's going back still to those principles that you were talking about there.
Yeah, but Simba, what you should never forget here is that MDC, when it was formed in the late 1990s, it was formed on the basis of it will implement the democratic reforms necessary to end the ZANU-PF one-party dictatorship. That was the basis. And the party name itself said it, Movement for Democratic Change. The issue then is, did MDC have the opportunity to implement any reforms in the last 25 years? And the answer to that has got to be yes, they did. During the GNU, particularly of 2008 to 2013, they had the golden opportunity to implement the reforms. Chamisa was in that GNU government. He was one of the senior leaders. He was a minister, as much as the others like Tendai Biti, David Coulthard, including Morgan Tsvangirai himself, was the prime minister. They had 5 years to implement the democratic reforms. They failed to implement even one token reform. There can be no excuse for it other than that Mugabe bribed them with the trappings of high office and they forgot about the reforms. And credit where credit is due. South Africa's Minister Lindiwe Zulu, who was running, representing SADC in the GNU, did push for reforms to be implemented. That is one of the reasons why Robert Mugabe at one point called her a street woman. In the most undiplomatic language, publicly denouncing her, because she had been pushing the opposition to implement reforms. And they'd been ignoring it. The opportunity to implement reforms were there. And our friends in the opposition, they had their snouts in the feeding troughs and they forgot about the reforms. And it was late in 2013 that they realized that they had actually done nothing. And in their panic, they tried to be the ones who were pushing for the new constitution so that they could be seen to have done something. And Tsvangirai is on record saying that the new constitution was an MDC child. And yet when, after the referendum, Paul Mangwana, the ZANU-PF co-chair of the committee, the parliamentary committee that wrote that constitution, boasted that it was Mugabe who dictated that constitution. This is why that constitution has never worked. It has been a decree of a dictator like Mugabe. You can't expect Mugabe to come up with a democratic constitution. That is why it failed to deliver even free, fair, and credible elections, even before it was amended in 2013. That is the reality. That is where we're starting from. And as for Chamisa, whether it is strategic for him to have walked away from Triple C when he realized that it had been completely infiltrated by ZANU-PF, like I said, the damage had already been done. And to be quite honest, I don't see how that made any difference to the ordinary Zimbabwean. Maybe starting afresh is better for him. But that is, the damage had already been done as far as the ordinary Zimbabwean was concerned. You have participated in a flawed electoral process. You have given ZANU-PF legitimacy. And now we are stuck with ZANU-PF for the next 5 years, which is where we are now. I don't know. I think time will tell whether Chamisa will come up with something better now that he abandoned Triple C in 2024. But time will tell. But as for the damage, at that point, Simba, the damage was done. And there are certain things that we can face.
Well, Wilbert, I'm hearing you, but what else can be done, surely? Don't you agree that Chamisa has tried, and he is trying, and Chamisa is leading, Wilbert?
Well,
do you agree? He might not be kutungamirira a government, right, that has got police, but the truth of the matter is you don't have to be in government to be a leader. You can be anything at any time, Wilbert, and you'll still be a leader. You'll still be a national leader. Khamenei in Iran is not in government, but he is the leader. He is the one who calls the shots.
Agree. I totally agree.
The Archbishop of Canterbury, in the UK, right? He's not in politics, but the fact is he's leading Pari Papo. The stuff that he's doing, he calls the shots of British politics, of British the direction that and the decision making. So what I'm saying is the tactics, the techniques need to change. Am I wrong? Something needs to give in. If you are blocked in one avenue, you need to find another. You need to be creative.
There, I agree with you, Simba. But what you have got to understand, and you have got to admit, is that during the GNU, they had the opportunity to implement the reforms. They failed to do so. We cannot sweep that under the carpet. As an opposition, as a party in the GNU, you had the opportunity to do certain things. Did you do them? No. In 2023, the opportunity was you should not participate in these flawed elections because all you'll be doing is give ZANU-PF legitimacy. And he was warned of that repeatedly. He participated. He even went to the extent of lying to people that Triple C was going to win big. Hashtag God is in it. People believed him. Did Triple C win? No, it didn't. ZANU-PF blatantly rigged those elections. And because he had participated, you gave ZANU-PF legitimacy. We cannot pretend that was nothing. That was an important event, which his role was not a positive one. That cannot be swept under the carpet. And in this particular case, he is coming up with another party. I don't know, it could accomplish a lot of things, but we cannot.
Well, yes, he has not said party, Wilbert. He doesn't want to tell you. He's not telling you what he's doing. Okay. But yeah, Wilbert, don't you think that this is a reflection that Chamisa does listen, and he does just take into account. He might not follow a certain path when you want, but then he has been paying attention when people have been telling him do this. When you have been saying don't participate, for instance. What has he done? He's pulled away from everything. And that time, when the 2023 elections, soon after that, when they happened, when Sarage, I am one of those people who advised, just leave the country. Just dump everything. Not so much the country, but leave the politics. Come out of parliament. And Chamisa didn't do it immediately, but later on he did instruct his MPs. They decided to stick in there, to stay in there. And then, yeah. But anyway, quickly, Wilbert, I think this will be great if we just quickly switch. While we were talking about Chamisa, there's one man who has, who kind of almost, shall I say, had taken the role in the community, one of like a Chamisa replacement, as it were, when it comes to opinions, when it comes to leadership. He started his own government in exile institution last year. He announced it. He prepared everything. He held multiple broadcasts and so forth to create this institution that he said that it is going to be bigger than Chamisa's and Mnangagwa's. And he said he's got 10 million people in support of him. He said he's got people inside the British Parliament and the French Parliament and the United Nations. He actually said these are Hopewells. Anzitinana, we've got Hopewells inside there, Wilbert. So this guy, he has actually raised himself to that level that he has perhaps mechanized certain people to represent him inside these institutions, these influential institutions. But quickly, this same person, Wilbert, has been announcing statements telling people that they are not at his level of debating. They should shut up because they do not have a home or they do not have a fully paid mortgage. I think you've seen these posts, Wilbert. Imima muspa level zake zadedi Wilbert. Zadedi. Noguta fully paid mortgage. I mean, he has actually been saying that. I think you've been seeing them. And then when people ask him now about the house, how did you buy your first home then? What he has been saying is, look, I bought my house from a cab's mortgage. This for several years. I bought it from a cab Zimbabwe mortgage. It was Zimbabwe money and the economy was functioning back then. And because of that, I was able to get this mortgage, Wilbert. And this is what he has been preaching for a fairly, very long time. I think it's now 6 years. And he will be showing, in fact, a whole a CABS document with the logo there. CABS used to be one of my clients, by the way, long ago. And then Wilbert, he would then tell youths in Zimbabwe that they should follow him and follow his model of lifestyle, of career, and also of amassing property. I think you've seen these, Wilbert. And then Wilbert, but you know, that was CAB's mortgage between 2019 and 2023. Now, in 2023, he shifted. And then he started saying the the money was not at all Keb's money. It was actually money from the United Kingdom, contrary to what he was saying previously in years before, that it was Zimbabwe money, right? But this time he actually does admit that it was in fact illicit money that he got from a car that he imported from Great Britain illegally, because it was a car on loan that he got worth over 120,000 present value money today. Back then it was 50,000 British pounds at the age of 25 in 1996. And then Wubert, he doesn't stop there. Now he says, look, I got this money from a bank loan, a sports car loan that a sports car I shipped to Zimbabwe. I sold that sports car, and then the money from that car, I used it to enter the property market, and I bought my first home. Now, Wilbert, this is his story in 2023 after I had pressured him because I did not want him to be any way associated with my documentary work and my investigation because of certain findings that I've got. But after that, Wilbert, Hopewell has continued. Having failed to disclose the British lender of that sports car. So that's what I've been asking for, Wilbert. I've been wanting that the lender of that sports car, Arikupi. Hopewell has now, all of a sudden, as of yesterday, announced a new claim this time. He is saying that the money that he has comes from 1986. His father was a goat farmer, and the goats were worth 100,000 each. So that is where came his money. I'm sorry I've talked too much, but you know what? I think you can see Hopewell has got a lot of stories. He will say this, but you know, I'm not tired. I take in, I digest, I analyze, and I don't stop.
Well, I mean,
but
Zimbabwe,
you've lived in the
I think you are a journalist, and I think many people would accept this as a matter of fact that you have carried out thorough investigations on a number of issues. You know, and in this particular case, what you're telling me about Hopewell is something that I can only shake my head over. You know, I haven't done the research myself, but I would want to emphasize to the listeners out there that I had issues with Hopewell, as far back as 2017. He was one of those who I personally was disgusted when he was encouraging people to give Mnangagwa a chance. I made it very clear that you do not give somebody like Mnangagwa a chance because we already know what kind of leader he has been. I'm really surprised that somebody of his caliber would say something like that. I didn't know him then, but for somebody who was getting a lot of following from Zimbabweans to come out and say, let's give Mnangagwa a chance, etc., was to me unbelievable. And I've condemned him for that. And I think that is one of the issues that I will always have with somebody like him. We really need to think of the consequences, particularly when you have got somebody who has got a following, who has got influence, to whom people pay attention. It is important that you really think carefully before you say something. And in this particular case, that would be an issue I have with him. You know, and I accept some of the stories that you're talking about, the contradictions he's talking about. It's only giving more, shedding more light about the character we are dealing with here. And maybe also trying to educate people that in future people should be very careful and not be easily conned into believing that just because somebody is very is telling the truth.
But tell me about a sports car loan with it. 50,000 in 1996. Was it possible to get a sports car loan in 1996 and then illegally ship it also to Zimbabwe and sell it when it's not your car in 1996?
Zimbabwe, I can tell you now.
Mm-hmm.
Even when I was a student myself, I had in some of my classmates who were conmen to the point where they were doing a lot of things that you and me would never dream of. I'm a student. How am I going to con somebody to sell me such an expensive asset like a car? You know, I would not be able to convince the bank manager or whoever it is to give me the money, but they did. You know, this is one of the problems we have in life. There are some people out there who have got a very sweet tongue, and they can con even some of the professionals to do anything. So, is it possible? I would not rule it out, Simba. I'll be honest with you. There are some people out there who would con you to believe that they are more than what they say they are. You know, and it will take years before you finally discover, no, that wasn't true. They conned you. But there are people who can do that. I don't know about the specifics of this particular case, but whether somebody can con, I think that.
But take us into this, Wobet. He was publishing. Right now, he's still to disclose, by the way, that the name of that British lender. But for over 4 years, he was publishing that this was a cab's mortgage, and it was not proceeds from the United Kingdom. It was not money from the UK. He then says later on that it is UK. But take us into the reality of a man who has got 3 IDs with 3 totally different names. He's called Hopewell Mukusha on one ID and on his birth certificate. He's called Hopewell Hopewell Mukusha Chingono on another ID. This time it's a work ID. Number 3, on another ID, which is dated 2001. By this time, he has changed, and he's now called Hopewell Rugoho Chingono with an apostrophe now. And he's got a deed declaration, a name change, which is in Zimbabwe. But I would like to understand, and I think a lot of people would want to understand here, this 50,000 loan, sports car loan, you're 25 years old in 1996. Is it possible to get a sports car loan and then you then ship that car to the UK? Sorry, to Zimbabwe.
Well, like I said, Zimbabwe,
and it's not yours.
Yeah, I mean, I've known conmen. Some of them, you can't believe some of the things that they did. But later on, you find out that they actually did those things. It's amazing, you know. I would not be able to comment on his particular case because I really don't know the specifics. But I would not be surprised that somebody has done something like that. I'll be honest with you. And unfortunately, I've heard of many Zimbabweans who have done similar things. And I'm not proud of it.
And then is it possible, Wilbert, for a British embassy to do a police clearance? I mean, the embassy has now stated twice, by the way, that they've never police cleared anyone. They've never done a police clearance on anyone. And they never did it on him. They've never done it on anyone. And that is what he has been using for a very long time, to say that the British embassy police cleared the money that he used, that he moved to Zimbabwe, that the police cleared his 3 identity cards that have got 3 totally different names. So,
well, you are
journalist,
yes, but and I think this is your domain. You know, you
yeah, I know. But what we're gonna do with it, sorry.
I was going to say that you would know from your investigations what the British embassy can and cannot do. But again, those are some of the things that, unfortunately, it's not the first time I've heard of such criminal activity, and some of them are even worse. You know, so it's most unfortunate, particularly when you're talking of Zimbabwe. I think one of the things that I used to be really proud of, and I am not ashamed to repeat it, is that Zimbabweans had the reputation of being very honest and hardworking. And the last 20 years, that reputation has gone down the tube. And it is a pity that a country like that, I think it was here actually at ZimEye, you are the one who covered the story of a Zimbabwean nurse who was helping to look after Prince Philip.
Charles. You know. Philip, sorry, yeah.
Yeah, and you did a really good work on her qualifications and how competent she was and so forth. And I think that is something that we are rightly to be, as a Zimbabwe, to be proud of. And then you will have, on the other hand, Zimbabwean stories of individuals who seem to have this knack for breaking the law, being dishonest. There is nothing to be proud of.
You know, eventually I later on met that nurse, by the way, on a plane one day when I was flying over to Africa, and she came to me. I was like, wow, it was quite interesting. She recognized me and it was amazing. But quickly, Bobet, I really want to thank you. What we want to quickly do right now is to just briefly replay the War Veterans win, and then we'll play the video that has got the embassy statement of Hopewell, and we're going to be ending quickly. And so this is it. Thank you so much for coming in tonight, Wilbert. Here
Okay, we were in court. We had our clients were farm owners in Koromonti's Prince Farm. They had their offer letters withdrawn by the Minister of Lands, that's Minister Masuku. And I think they withdrew the offer letters. Then we took the minister to the High Court, challenging his exercise of power. Then unfortunately, the minister decided to delegate the power of answering these papers to the permanent secretary. And at the hearing of the matter, that point was taken up, that there had been no opposition because the minister himself had not deposed an affidavit and also had not answered. The court accepted that point. But not only did it accept that point that the minister was not before it, the court also went into details to look at the withdrawal of the offer letters. And on the merits, the court was satisfied that the minister had not applied his mind to the withdrawals. These farmers had actually raised a number of concerns, but the minister was giving them the same answer. He didn't take into account the peculiar situations of each of those. But what is also important is that the court stressed that land is an important resource. The grant or withdrawal of offer letters must not be a walk in the park. Once a person has access to land through an offer letter, that offer letter must not just be withdrawn willy-nilly in the manner that the minister in this case did. So at the end of the day, the court then set aside.
Right, so here we go, and we shall be hearing the embassy quickly.
What Simba keeps posting that I exposed people is a lie. What happened was that I was taken to have a conversation in 2018, which I publicly talked about. In that conversation, there was the British ambassador, the EU ambassador, a Congolese businessman called Kalampina, Vice President Chiwenga, and then we were taken to the president of the country, Emerson Mnangagwa. It had nothing with all this bullshit that Simba posts about. Simba has gone to a point where he's asking me to account for a car that I drove 30 years ago. I assume that people have common sense, you know. And so in that regard, I was never going to answer this nonsense, Angojed. But, you know, if you ask me to account,
so you see, Robert, it's him
that I bought 30 years ago, because you hate me so much. You don't like me.
It's him, I declare. It's him.
So much.
Who announced that car?
Can
you see?
I have more money in my current account than all those figures that he talks about. In that manner, I can account for it. So I think it's very petty of us as Zimbabweans to really, you know, imagine if I get into an argument with Kudamsa Siwa over something else, and then I start asking him to account for a car that he bought 30 years ago. I start asking him to account for a house. You know, I've been asked to account for my house more than 1,000 times ago. More than 1,000 times, I mean, not ago. The British Embassy has had to issue a public statement to say I'm not a fugitive from justice. But that is how petty Zimbabweans are. I'll post it right away. The British Embassy has had to issue a statement to say Hopewell Chingono is not a fugitive from justice in Britain. But in a country that has no single working radiotherapy machine, that has no clean drinking water, that has no decent roads, that has no pensions for its pensioners, every day Simba Chikanza tweets about the sports car that I drove, and he lies about how I'm a fugitive from justice and all that. It's a shame. It's a shame because it shows the rest of the world. I want to tell you, Angoljet, I want to tell you about how this is so shameful. I was invited for coffee in Parktown North in Johannesburg by Jeff, who is the correspondent of the Canadian Globe in Johannesburg. And he said to me, you know, let's have drinks, Jeff York. And he said to me, this guy keeps writing about you. What's going on? Is everything okay? But this is how the rest of the world sees us as the people. You know, you are chasing after a 52-year-old guy and asking him to account how he bought a house for 60,000 in Chisipiti. You are chasing after a 52-year-old guy, and you're asking him to account how he bought a Toyota Supra in 1996, and today is 2024. I've never worked for government. I don't earn public funds. I've never stolen anything from the state. But a whole supposedly website spends 2 years chasing after a guy, asking him, what if I tell you that I have £3 million in my account today, that I've worked for, that I can account for, that has been paid into that account by British institutions like ITV News that I've worked for? And you're asking me about £50,000 when I have £3 million in my account. When I live in a 4 million rand house in Johannesburg, when I live in a $600,000 house in Harare, and the whole struggle is reduced to talking about how a man bought a car with 50,000 US dollars or pounds 30 years ago. It just shows how petty we are.
But
It shows how we are not
why
yet
not engage
ready.
him, on that, aspect? I mean,
No.
have a
I'm never going to do that, Uncle Jed.
Because the tango body rom crossfire.
No. Let's. I think.
Friend yacho.
I think.
This in the Gadagomana. In
I think what we need to do. I think what we need to do is. No. I think what we need to do as sensible people is to focus on sensible issues. If we start degenerating into these stupid things, then there's no reason why foreigners have to respect us. Because if we can't respect ourselves, why do we expect strangers to respect us?
Right. So on that issue, your clarification when it comes to those issues that he has raised.
No, there's no clarification. I just said things in passing. I don't owe that guy anything.
Mm-hmm.
As I said to you, I'm not a public figure. I have more money than he talks about.
Mm-hmm.
I have no obligation to tell anyone how I've earned that money. I've never worked for government. I've worked my whole life for private media. You know who I've worked for.
Mm-hmm.
If you think that what I have, I didn't earn it, go to ITV News. Those are my employers. Those are the people that were paying me money. If you think that I did not earn what I've got, like I live in a nice house.
Sorry, just repeating that. I'm sure people heard him there where he said, I've worked for private media all my life. Now, if you're watching on Twitter Space here, if you click, you'll notice that there is a tweet that he announced that he was a cleaner. So he was actually a cleaner. Can you see it? 5 July 2023. I started off as a cleaner in Planet Hollywood in London. But he says there on the Twitter Space that he was working for private media all my life. So did you hear that, folks? Should I repeat that? Just gonna slightly bring it back here, where he's refusing accountability. He says, look, I was working for private media all my life. And yet, so if you're on Twitter Space, just click the video and see it for yourselves.
I have no obligation to tell anyone how I've earned that money. I've never worked for government. I've worked my whole life for private media. You know.
So there you are. I've worked my whole life for private media. And yet, on 5 July 2023, he tweeted there, if it helps, I started off as a cleaner, Planet Hollywood in London. So there's another contradiction there. Let's continue.
Who I've worked for.
Mm-hmm.
If you think that what I have, I didn't earn it, go to ITV News. Those are my employers. Those are the people that were paying me money. If you think that I did not earn what I've got, like I live in a nice house and I don't deserve it, go to ITV News. Those are my employers. They say it publicly that they employed me. Why should ambuya vako varikugara kumusha havana kana pension, havana kana mushonga. And you want to know how a guy bought a car 30 years ago. Come on, Uncle Jet. Let's move on from this.
I don't know. Apologies. Yeah, but anyway.
There we are. Mosha irovi, but pakaipa. Watadza kupindura. Mosha irovi. That's the host there speaking. Crime does not expire.
There's also a question here.
I think there's a guy called Tino. The village boy. I had blocked him. I've blocked him. I think he wanted to ask something.
No, you was here.
He has asked a question.
He has actually, asked you, a question.
Okay.
Yeah. So we are in that spirit of unblocking people. which is quite good. Okay, there's a question here. Anzizo, are you going to apologize to Nelson Chamisa privately or publicly and move on to build a greater Zimbabwe?
I have no reason to apologize to my brother Nelson because everything I said was based on facts. And what that person needs to do is to come and say to me, what you said about Nelson or about Triple C on this particular instance is wrong, and here are the facts. I have no reason to apologize to politicians. I never apologize to politicians. Nelson Chamisa and all the other politicians, and I talk to all of them. Oh, you want to know how a guy bought a car 30 years ago? Come on, Uncle Jet. Let's move on.
Apologies. Yeah, but
Hello, Mr. Hulu.
Yeah. I'm good, thank you. Go ahead.
Right. So, some of us have been on the underground for so many years, just listening in the terraces of about this gentleman called Hopewell Chingono. Now, I was just figuring out how best to put my presentation across, but I realized if I go the way I wanted to go, I may press the wrong button. Now, this guy is somebody I know personally. I have counted some of the money installed with him, but I want you to catch.
Sorry, Comrade Energy.
Yes.
We don't want our listeners to miss what you are saying. You are saying this guy, you mean Hopewell Chingono?
Hopewell, Daddy Hope, Hopewell Rugo
Daddy Hope.
Chingono.
Yeah. You are saying that he is somebody that you know personally.
Somebody that I know personally. I've known him since 2000. When
and you're saying that the issue of money, what did you say?
When he was committing his crime. So, but what I want to do is, I want to talk to you on a personal level outside the platform. And then I'll give you the story. I'm sure Mr. Simbachikanza knows me there. I've had a bit of a discussion with him a few months back. But I want you to catch me outside this platform. Then I can tell you the story. My concern is, if anyone is going to be a person of influence, he has to be vetted. We need to vet people that become people of influence. If you're not vetted, we'll always continue to be, falling on the same trap of kudilana matsotsi, kudilana vanhu dented people. If you are going to be somebody who brings credible ideas about progressing a country or progressing a nation, you have to be vetted. And that's the way forward. So what I've said, maybe you take it up on a later.
Auntie Tete, I think you have a personal issue with Daddy Hope. No, I don't have a personal issue with Daddy Hope. I know Daddy Hope personally. That's the thing. I knew Daddy Hope when he was called Hopewell Mukusha. Panga Kumaubra High School. Taito famba tichiperekedzana kuma sports, achiperekedzana nehanzvadzi dzangu, chichi. Pakauya ku Britain, taitozivana ku Britain. Zvese zvema credit card fraud zvandiri kutaura ndakazviona nemaziso angu inini. Vanhu vaitora ma credit card, vofona voti totumirai ku room 101 ku Sheraton. Oenda futi onoti tumirai ku 201, oti tumirai futi ku 901. Saka watenga ne credit card remunhu rawaba. Kana kuti rawawana credit card that you have acquired. Ko wallet yangu iri kupinda kukuratidza how easy it is to do credit card fraud. For those of you makasarira munyaya yacho, inini zvangu ndiri wezviziya. Okay. Where's my card? Okay, ndandabuda panze ndichinotenga zvinhu kugateway, right? So this is your card. The long number here, this long number here, they take it. All they also need is the expiry date, that's all. And then pane number kari paseri panapa ako. So ukaenda to any catalog, you just go, woisa zita rekadi, woisa the long number, woisa the expiry date, woisa the issue number at the very end, the number at the back. Saka kudara vanga vasati vane ma anti-fraud mechanisms, okay? Saka vanhu vaita madiro aJorgina. Now they ask certain personal questions, and also if you have
we had a bit of a discussion with him of kudilana.
How easy it is to do credit card fraud. For those of you makasarira munyaya yacho, inini zvangu ndiri kuzviziva. Okay, where's my card? Okay, ndabuda panze ndichinotenga zvinhu kugateway, right? So this is your card. The long number here, this long number here, they take it. All they also need is the expiry date, that's all. And then pane number kaseri panapa ako. So ukaenda to any catalog, you just go, woisa zita rekadi, woisa the long number, woisa the expiry date, woisa the issue number at the very end, the number at the back. Saka kudara vanga vasati vane ma anti-fraud mechanisms, okay? Saka vanhu vaita madiro aJorgina. Now they ask certain personal questions, and also if you have emitted too many transactions on your card, or you are jumping around all over the place, they stop your cards. I remember one time I went to Minnesota in what year was that? I went in 2001, okay? DBT, I was setting up the new dome. I had so many transactions. I was shopping. And then my bank stopped my card. And I was like, what's wrong with you? Why are you stopping my card? Because you've had unusual activity on your card. There have been about 10 transactions in one day. I want to just get all my shopping and then pack and leave it there. So back then, kwakusati kwane ma mechanisms. So vanhu vaitenga mazisofa anodhura ma 4,000, machi, even motikari chaidzo. Yodhilivwa kuchi 101, 201, zvimwe zvodhilivwa ku 901. Saka votora zvinhu izvo zvoti, oh, uri kuda masofa, alright, ndokutengesa 2,000. Apapa ari kutomeka 2,000 pounds profit. Unonga kuti ukanyatsosanda over a few days or a few months, I'll eat very rich. Saka some of you don't know what you're talking about. You don't know what you're talking about. Some of you don't even know the innermost. And some of you have been accusing me audaciously. Oh, so why are you saying it right now? This is something that for those of you who really follow me, my friends, please let me have 1 or 2 people. Some thumbs up. Tete, you've been warning us about Hopewell. An incident about 3 or 4 weeks ago. Pane my friend yangu akamutaga pa page pangu. Pana mimi zvataitaura. Panotaurwa zvekutaurwa zvi. Ndomva vamutaga ndikati don't bother kumutaga because ndakamublocker years ago. Zvikanzi chichi. Ndova ndamu unblocker for the purpose of them to see this thing. Ndipo pazvanga zvatanga izvozvi zvenhingirikini Zimbabwe Lives Matter ndikati imimi vanhu chenjererai character yemunhu. Bamudiki vangu vakaimba I love your character, or I don't love his character. In fact, I don't love character yemunhu. Anybody are very dishonest. Pandanga chiti ndakaenda ku America, we were learning about personality disorders. My specialty in psychiatry is forensic mental health. Ndo specialty yangu. Ndiratidze anybody ane personality disorder, I will sniff them out. Achiri ku airport kuti munhu uyu haasi right. Ndoda ndikazoita mini mental state, ndikazonyatso kunyorera care plan, zvinoyatsobuda seizvozvi. Saka kune masats ndo vanoita zvinhu zvakadhakwa sezvandiri kuedza kutsanangura izvizvi. Nyenga kamusikana abvume uda kudya chakafa, what's wrong with you? Kana kuina vamwe varume who ply women with drugs and alcohol, shame on you. Ndo pandiri kuona kuti vakadzi vofuti muri kubanya. What happened to the women movement, women's liberty? Saka muda kuti vamwe vanhu vaiswe against their will. I can just imagine. Ndarowa zvangu nechibuku changu kana kuti whiskey yangu somebody akuda kutoita zvimwe zvinhu. That's so disrespectful. You bring shame to people's good names. So handizive kuti at what point did this young man decide kuti akuchinja zita kana kuti ku Metropolitan Police zvinhu zvanga zvakupisa. But yes, it is not alleged. Zvitoripo zvechokwadi zvomene. A lot of you vari ku Twitter makamboiona hondo pamakabodenana naye 2 years ago. Rudzwa nze he tinozviziva zvemafraud zvekuri UK nechi. Kana musingazive from the Garden of Eden.
We need to vet people that become people of influence. If you're not vetted, we'll always continue to be, falling on the same trap of kudilana matsotsi, kudilana vanhu dented people. If you are going to be somebody who brings credible ideas about progressing a country or progressing a nation, you have to be vetted. And that's the way forward.
The embassy responded to your request. Check on the Facebook page.
This is Zimai Media, broadcasting all round the world, on the spot, on the dot.